And now, the third question will go to Mr. Carr again. This question is pertaining specifically to industrial development. As we speak, many unsightly properties in town remain undeveloped. Seeking investors, these properties not only affect the general aesthetics of our community, but their development would sure increase our grand list. How would you propose to attract and secure investment in these sites, and how do you envision their use?
Well, there are a number of sites in Clinton that have, for a variety of reasons, have been previously industrial, and those industries have left. We've had the collapse of the Unilever warehouse. Those are tremendous opportunities to build a grand list, and to do so in some ways that could be very attractive financially. What we've got to be very careful of is that as we do that, we do not impinge on the residential properties that abut those locations, that we have proper buffering. And it was really interesting. I was at the Unilever ad hoc committee the other night, and I was kind of surprised and relieved to hear that some people in town would actually entertain making the Unilever site an industrial site once again, where I think the move has been to make it mixed use and to make it more residential and make it more transit oriented. We've got to find some ways to make those things work together. One of the things I thought that the EDC could do is to do some pre-approvals. One of the problems that we have is that when somebody wants to do something, the cost of getting it through planning and zoning can sometimes be prohibitive, and they don't know whether at the end of that process they're going to have a solution. So I think the EDC could begin to do some pre-approvals of certain kinds of usages, so that we can begin to tell people a lot of that work has been done with planning and zoning, so that when they come into town, it won't necessarily be turnkey, but it'll be a lot closer to turnkey to attract those kinds of developers, those kinds of industries.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Mrs. Goupil?
First and foremost, I think we need to start creating marketing materials for those specific sites around town. These marketing materials could be shared through EDC and through our CERC organization, which is the Connecticut Economic Resource Center. They have a listserv there that can provide people with the information about specific towns that have development opportunities. When you create the marketing material, you could highlight specifically what the uses are, what kind of streamlined processes could be created through Planning and Zoning Commission outside the regulatory issues that are required, and also what DEEP is, Department of Environmental Protection, would allow on those sites. We need to start also working with DEEP. We were just up at DEEP this morning to address some of the issues with Unilever and possibly move forward more quickly with them, finding out what their process would be to make sure that developer can come in easily without having to get caught up with a longer-term application process. I believe that all the industrial sites around town are problematic in that the residential has encroached upon them, but that doesn't mean the residential property owners should suffer for it. We need to address those areas and possibly rezone some of those areas as potentially residential if those property owners feel it's appropriate. They have pre-existing timelines there that allow them to be there, but we also need to expand industrial in town along with business, because that is what's going to support a tax base.
Thank you. And now to Mr. Carr for the first rebuttal.
Well, one of the things that we certainly could and should do is we now spend $48,000 a year on a planner consultant. One of the things that we ought to consider doing is repositioning that position as a marketing position, working more closely with the Economic Development Commission. And we've done a lot of planning. My friend John Allen likes to say enough monkey see, it's time for monkey do. And we need to get really in place some very aggressive marketing materials. I think CERC is a great resource. We certainly have underutilized CERC, and many industries, many companies start with CERC because they really do have a great inventory of locations and tremendous analysis of what is within the training area of each of those locations.
Thank you. And Mrs. Goupil for a rebuttal.
Regarding the economic component of it, I believe a town planner is in order at this point. If you look at all the surrounding towns, at every conference I've been to, your planner is at the table, engaging with everybody at the state level. They're engaging with developers at seminars. There is an economic component to a planner, and that is necessary, but at the end of the day, we need to streamline our land use office to make it more efficient. We need to handhold developers so when they come to the land use office, they know that they're going to get everything they need in one office, that they don't have to go to different resources around the town and within the state. So a planner is really the linchpin there, and also to update our zoning regulations because we're antiquated at this point. We're not attractive to developers. And the only way we're going to do that is with a full-time planner who knows our town and knows the processes and the issues that are out there with the commission's structures at the current time.
Thank you, Mrs. Goupil. In tune with industrial development, downtown development is also a pertinent issue. Driving along the streets of other shoreline communities such as Old Saybrook, Madison, Guilford, it's difficult not to feel frustrated with the state of Clinton's downtown area. What ideas do you have to bring a competitive sense of vibrancy to our downtown area? And this question will go to Mrs. Goupil.
So a long time ago, we started an organization called Placemakers. I've since stepped away from it, but that was the first step to creating the dynamics in the downtown that needs to take place. Again, we need to market the downtown. We need to have directional signage when you come off each of the gateways into the community, directing people to downtown. But you also have to have some sort of vibrancy in the downtown to attract people. And that takes a relationship with the state, again, to look at some of these sites and see what is feasible for wastewater on the site so that people can expand to a higher and better use. So if our zoning aligns with expanding to a higher and better use, that makes sure that we need to know that the soils are developable. And for this reason that we applied for a grant, it was just in this last year for wastewater capacity at Unilever with potential into the downtown. That really is the only way that we're going to be able to develop these sites much further and much more expansively and have the vibrancy that we're interested in.
Thank you, Mrs. Goupil. Mr. Carr?
I've heard the issue of wastewater for some time. A lot of these empty storefronts were once not empty, and we're quite in compliance with wastewater issues. I think that our problem is we've made it too hard to keep a small business running in Clinton through regulation and taxes, especially taxes. I know I keep coming back to the same thing, but it is the keystone of an awful lot of things in this town. And if we can't get a handle on the taxes, I mean, if you were deciding where you were going to start your business and you saw that chart, would you bring it to Clinton or would you put it in Westport or would you put it in Old Saybrook? So I mean, some of these things are pretty obvious, and we're not at a competitive advantage. We're certainly, and we may be at a competitive disadvantage. We've got to find ways to make what we have seem more valuable so we can justify those mill rates, or we have to bring them down. The other part about these empty storefronts is not only are they not producing tax revenue, but they're not providing jobs and they're not providing the convenience. Many of us have to go to other towns to get things we used to get here. I was trying to find a cobbler the other day. I have to go to Brantford to find somebody to work on shoes. There used to be a cobbler that was, down on Main Street. I don't know why these things go away, but the fact is that keeping a small business going in Clinton has gotten to be very difficult, and we have to be mindful of that. I mean, one of the things that the EDC did was we started inviting people into Clinton who go to Clinton Crossing. 4 million people in Clinton Crossing, and the basic blocking and tackling of inviting them to come and visit our restaurants and see all of our events was not being done until 3 years ago when the EDC created the restaurant guide. And we now have standees at Clinton Crossing, and we're going to have posters up for Christmas in Clinton, so that there are things that we can do to take advantage of the resources that we have. We've got a beautiful harbor. One side of that standee showed people that just 5 minutes away there's this beautiful harbor. So we've got to draw people into Clinton, not only from Clinton Crossing, but also from the Hammonasset State Park. There are 1.5 million people who go to Hammonasset State Park. We've got to figure out ways to make those people come in. But the problem is it's chicken and egg. We also need the kinds of businesses that they need to come in to go to.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Mrs. Goupil, would you like a rebuttal?
I agree that we absolutely need to be attracting people from the surrounding communities. We can't completely rely on our current businesses to support the community. So we do have the outlook of looking at Clinton and then the regional areas and what's going to be attractive. So we have a marketing feasibility study for the town that has not been implemented yet, and that is the first go-to. You got to look at your data and what is marketable for the town and what are developers looking at, and then rezone for those areas as well. Then you have to go out and find these developers. You need to create tax structures that make it attractive to the developers coming in. We have the opportunity to create the assessment deferral programs, which is on a sliding scale where people can come in and they can expand, and then they can gradually start off with lower taxes, and gradually it goes to the standard taxes they have, but it gives them opportunity to build their business and accommodate to the typical tax structure of the town.
Mr. Carr?
You know, the tax program that she just spoke about is a great idea as long as it doesn't give an advantage to a newcomer over a business that's been here. The key is to try to find businesses that complement businesses that are already here. By that I mean, we don't try to get another pizza parlor. We have plenty of pizza parlors. But we do need a cobbler. And there's some other things that, that we would like to have that would make Clinton more livable. There's just services that people, have to go to North Branford or to Guilford or someplace else. And there's no reason that we shouldn't be able to attract and support and sustain those kinds of businesses on Main Street in Clinton, to make Main Street in Clinton a viable, thriving downtown that's as good as any on the shoreline, better.
Thank you, Mr. Carr.